Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors, your source in the field for local outdoor news. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we'll be doing some ice fishing, but this is no ordinary ice fishing trip. Today we'll be ice fishing puddles. Now what do I mean by that? Well, a friend, Dan Brannigan, invited me to come out and fish a stretch of the Big Lost River. This year the river dried up much worse than normal. In fact, the last time he recalls this stretch drying up was 7 years ago. He had been here as the river dried up and before it froze over, and he knew there were lots of fish trapped in these big holes. With ice now covering each hole and the water level down at least a foot more than the last time he was here, all we could do was assume there were fish under the ice, if there was even still any water. All right, so behind us here we've got our first puddle, and it literally is that. As you can see, it looks like, you know, at one point it was, I don't know, 30 or 40 feet long, maybe a week ago when they were out here in the past, and now it looks like, if we're lucky, we might have 10 feet that has barely any water. So we're going to drill down. We'll see if we've even got water, and then if we've got water, do we have fish that are alive or not? So we will drill down and check out our first puddle here. Now before I show you how the ice fishing went, let's backtrack about an hour. You see, also in the area was a stretch of river that still has running water from a few springs, and that open water attracts hundreds of ducks. At least it did last time that they were here. So before hitting the ice, Dan suggested we do a quick jump shoot with the boys. Dan headed up to the top end of the area to be ready for anything that came his way after the rest of us got them moving. Who were the rest of us? Well, Dan brought his son Daniel, and my boys Nathan and Cade were along.
Here and right here, and then off to the side, and we'll try and hit the water at the same time.
Once we got close, we stopped and Daniel gave us the lay of the land and explained what the game plan was. Essentially, we'd all split up about 30 to 50 yards apart and try to walk up to the long stretch of open water at the same time, because once they were spooked, they'd all get up and be moving, and we all needed to be ready. Nathan went to the left and Daniel to the right. I stayed with Cade right in the middle. Heading in, Cade and I quickly found that we had a problem. We ran into lots of dead branches that were making it very noisy to sneak in. Not knowing exactly what was in front of us, or knowing when Nate and Daniel would reach the water, had us hurrying through so we wouldn't miss the action. By now we could hear lots of waterfowl, so at least we knew they were here. And then suddenly we could hear they'd been spooked by Nathan on our left. As we saw ducks start to fill the air, I hurried Cade forward, and that's when we heard Nathan's first shot.
Okay, go up there, go up there.
Yeah, put another one in, and then really aim coming out here. Okay, he got one. Okay, just wait. Holy, look at all those ducks. Okay, they're gonna swing back around, so be ready. Now, go up forward and just hunch down. Okay, right here. Okay, now be ready. Come down. Here they come, here they come.
Cade only had a single shot 20 gauge, and so his only hope now was for more to fly back once he was reloaded.
Be ready still, there's gonna be more. That is crazy.
Now before we got here, Dan had told us in the past that there had literally been hundreds of ducks, and that was no different today. The sky was filled with hundreds and hundreds of ducks flying off in the distance. Surely, out of all these ducks, a few would fly back in range. The problem was that most of them were staying very high. Those that hunt waterfowl know that a calm, clear day is not what you want, as the ducks usually fly much higher. That was definitely the case this morning. Lots of ducks, and they were all way up above us in the air.
They're really high.
It turns out that there were a couple springs they liked, both of which were on private property and not where we could hunt. We did hear a few more shots off to our right from Dan further upstream, and that got a few more flying our direction.
Keep you ready in case whatever he shot at come down low.
With all the hundreds of ducks we could see, it took a full 8 minutes before one flew even remotely close enough for Cade to take another shot.
Flyer coming in on the left. Be ready. Be ready. You see it?
Yeah.
Go for it. Oh. You tagged it just a little bit, I think.
All right, so we got here, and the plan was just kind of break up, and if they're there, then they'll fly, and then just run up and see if we can get a shot. And so Nate, that's on the left of us, he shot once, and I think I saw one go down. And then Daniel on the other side, he shot like 5 times, and I've never seen that many duck. It was just all over the sky.
We had seen at least one go down from Nathan, and now he crossed over and was quick to pop back out of the brush with his mallard.
All right, first duck of the day. Came over. There were a lot of ducks. A lot more than I'm ever used to for jump shooting. But made it count on my second shot. And there's a lot more ducks to try to get throughout the day.
It turned out that Dan was pretty good with his aim, and with his 2 shots, put 2 down. Walking upstream with Daniel, he showed us their blind they put up right on the bend of the river. We had hopes that throughout the day more ducks and maybe even geese would fly by this stretch of open water, so Nathan and Kate decided to go ahead and sit the blind while the rest of us regrouped to ice fish the leftover puddles. Now, as you saw earlier, we brought the ice auger to one of the frozen over sections of this river that earlier this year was running, but now was just one of the few deep spots that still held water when it iced over. We do have water, so
All right.
looks like about 8 inches.
Yeah.
What do you think, 2 holes here?
Yeah.
That really sank in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a foot at the most, the very most. Maybe 3 inches of
I
ice.
bet there were a dozen over 20 inches here before ice out in this hole right here. It's a real shame. But,
So do you think they're alive in here still?
yeah.
So we do have water in about a 15-foot span, it looks like. We've got maybe 8 inches or so of water, 3 inches of ice. We'll see if we've got any fish in this puddle. This is cool. This is something new. I'm excited to do this. With just a couple holes drilled, we got the gear out to clean out the ice and started setting up poles. This is a good time to introduce the other 2 guests to the show. Sliding down the ice in a blue hoodie is Dan's daughter, Jen. And in the vest is her friend, Danielle. So yes, if you're keeping track, we have a Dan, Daniel, and Danielle fishing today. All right, so here's our next hole. This is a long hole. You know, the river was 30, 40 feet wide and more at its peak, but now it's down to, it looks like maybe 5 feet wide, and we've got about 20 yards. So this is a big puddle here. So anyways, we're gonna do a few more holes. We've got Dan setting up some poles over there. We'll set up some here and get some more some more holes drilled. But anyways, we'll have 2 holes at least for now, maybe move around, and we'll see if we can't catch some big fish in some puddles, ice puddles. We found at this end of the hole there was very little water. As soon as I popped through the ice, the little bit of water I had turned muddy. You can tell by looking at the shoreline on the left that when this iced over originally, it was more than a foot higher. So the water was draining fast, which didn't bode well for the fish. As I continued to move downstream further in the hole, we finally hit what looked like a couple decent spots with enough water under the ice. Checking the depth, we found it was at least fishable. The last hole, however, didn't look fishable at all. What do you guess on that one? So you hit the bottom still?
I didn't hit the bottom up to there, so.
Right here, we got about a foot of water there. Downstream another 80 yards was another potential spot that Dan said might be the best one, and so we drilled some holes there. So with lots of holes in the ice, we set up several poles and spread out to see what would happen.
Is he still there?
No, I can see my bait. I was getting a bite here. Oh, man, that is a nice fish. Holy cow.
Great job.
All right, Dan wasn't lying here. We're still trying to get some rigs set up. See if I can get this guy off real quick.
Big fish and small puddles, huh?
Man, beautiful rainbow. If I can get him off. Come on, buddy. All right. Well, there you go. Couple pounds there. Beautiful fish. Unfortunately, we've got to go ahead and put it back in here. But this is technically my first fish I've ever caught in an ice puddle. So Dan said there were some big ones, and he says there's some that are a lot bigger than this.
Yes.
So we're going to see what we can do here. But that is that's a pretty fish, and just out here on a dried up river and some puddles. All right, so unfortunately here on the river, it shut down to keeping fish just a few days ago. It's all catch and release, and there is no salvage on this chunk of river. It's rare that, it was 7 years ago, Dan says, last time this happened. So unfortunately, these fish are probably not going to survive, but it's just the way things are the rules. So we've got to let this guy go and just hope that maybe this will hold some water for a while. Jen had a line that started getting some bites, but it quickly left. Then Danielle started getting some nibbles as well.
I grabbed the pole and just give him a nice jerk when he... So, there he goes. Give a jerk.
That fish disappeared, but it sure looked like we'd be in for a good day of fishing.
How's it going, Cade? Fishing a ice puddle. Nothing in your ice puddle yet?
Nope.
Surprisingly, things slowed down, and Cade wandered over from the duck blind to try a little fishing with us. He wanted to try a small puddle next to the one where we'd had action earlier.
In this puddle, the water is probably only like a foot deep. We don't even know if there's any fish in here.
Well, you know, we got a couple fish there right off the bat, and since then it's been pretty dead. We have had a couple bites, a couple nibbles, and that's it in about, I guess, 45 minutes or so. And so just slow. You know, we're thinking maybe later on it'll get pretty busy. Dan has done this once earlier this year, and while they were working on a few other things, they set some poles up, and it was really slow for a while, and then it got picking up pretty good. And they had a matter of 20 bites in a short time frame. So even though the fish seem to be congested in just these small little holes, I guess there's a bite, and there's a time that they don't bite. You'd think when they're trapped that they'd just gobble up anything you threw at them, but not the case.
While we were waiting during a long lull, and everyone else was fishing one of the other holes that was getting some nibbles, a pole at the far end started bouncing.
Yeah, the far one. It's laying down. Woo! There you are. That was a tough fight.
So I was over fishing in another different puddle, and my dad told me, or yelled at me to come over here because there was a pole that was getting hit. And so I ran over and I set it and got him. Unfortunately, we have to let him go. This is the first fish I've ever caught in on a frozen river, let alone a puddle.
Even though the fish didn't appear to be too hungry, we were all ready to eat, and it was Dan that took care of that problem for us.
Sometimes it's nice not to be roughing it so much, and in this case Dan was kind enough to bring lunch, and you know, when you're not too far from your truck you can have things a little bit nicer, and that's what we're going to do today. We got a few fish. Nathan's over there, he's been shooting a few ducks, and we're just having a good time, so time to eat some lunch.
Jen, who had caught a fish earlier in one of the further puddles, had been working on a nibbler for some time and finally hooked it.
Yeah, it was that hole that I got the first fish out of. He was nipping at it for a while, probably about 20 minutes, and then he finally took it. I think it was that corn that did the trick, putting that on the hook.
All right, so we've been fishing all day and it's been really, really slow, but we've been putting out a lot of pulls and still haven't got much. So we're gonna go put out another pull and see if we can get anything.
Fish number 4 out of the same hole. Slippery little guy. It's that corn that really does the trick. They like it. Okay, I'm gonna go let him go. Trying to see.
The hole Jen was fishing was definitely the big producer today, as she brought up another one. And oddly enough, a day that started out with plenty of time to catch lots of fish was already ending.
Well, it is now evening here. The sun has set. It's about to get dark, so we've pulled up most of the poles. We're just cleaning up the last little bit. Nathan and Cade are waiting for the last few minutes of shooting light here at the duck blind. We've been hearing a handful of shots going off there. I'm not quite sure how successful they were. However, as you saw, it was kind of hit and miss. Jen was able to pull in 4 fish from one hole. We only got 2 from this particular hole here. Would I do it again? Sure. This was definitely a unique kind of a thing, just fishing in these little ice puddles. Kind of a fun deal. I'm glad Dan invited us, and it kind of inspired me for a spot that's closer to home that I know about, just on the dry bed, that has a big hole that freezes up in the wintertime, never dries out when they dry it out. And anyways, I'm wondering, maybe I need to go check that out with the kids and do a little bit of ice fishing there this winter. So we might head there. But anyways, it was a fun time. The fishing obviously wasn't amazing, which is surprising. I would have thought, okay, we've got dozens and dozens of trout trapped in these holes. They ought to just be itching to eat anything. Not the case. So something fun that we learned this time. So anyways, that's going to wrap it up for here, but we still got more to do.
The hunt throughout the day was kind of slow. We had the first little bit when we jump shot the hole, and we had a ton of ducks come up. And I got that mallard, and then later, probably about 1:30, I got the other duck. And in between there was just a couple of shots. And after 1 o'clock, there was just a couple of shots. We're hoping they'd get up and start flying around towards dark. Just never did. So we were out getting the decoys, and sure enough, by the hundreds, group after group came flying in. So it's super nice day, no clouds, no wind. So that just kind of added to our I don't know what you call it, getting skunked almost. It just didn't push the ducks into water faster. So, but it's still a good day.
Tune in next week at the same time for another episode of Jared Scott Outdoors.